Hello there, cultists. It's the first Tuesday of the month, and you know what that means? It's time for another journey into the world of cult movies, and this time we're heading down in the underground. Yes, it's a special episode this time around. Not only are we looking at a certifiable classic, but this is our very first episode in our Silver Screen Fantasy season. Over the next few episodes of Silver Screen, Cult Classics, Cinema Classics, and Silver Screen Regular, we'll be taking a trip back to the world of 80s fantasy. So if that's your kind of thing, then grab your cloak and come with us as we look at the heyday of fantasy cinema, beginning this very episode with our journey into the Labyrinth. I'm DK, your regular host on these things. I've donned my very tight leggings and I'm ready to start twirling my crystal balls, so I'm set. But as usual, I'm not alone. I'm joined on this by three plucky fellow adventurers to see what they think of this. First up, we have a regular on the Silver Screen shows, and I understand she's been itching to talk about this one. It's Sandy.
Yeah, I'm real excited about this one. This is a strong favorite of mine.
Nice one. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well.
Good. Have you been up to anything since your last appearance on the show?
No, I did a few episodes with Mike, but not really too much happening with me, just the way I like it.
Good. Well, it's good to have you back. Yeah, next up, as the voice of the feedback section here on Cult Classics, as well as being a stalwart of all Media Matter Silver Screen shows, it's Vean.
Hi.
And how are things with you?
Oh, they're pretty good. Went to an art show last night, so I'm a little hungover, but it was a good time, and I'm really excited to talk about Labyrinth. It is one of my all-time favorite movies. I could probably recite it for you from start to finish right now. So I
Oh,
won't, but I'm really excited to talk about it.
oh, good stuff. I can't wait to hear what you've got to say. Finally, our third guest is somewhat responsible for this episode, as she's been asking to cover it ever since Cult Classics began. So let's hope it lives up to the expectation. It's Jenn.
Hi. Yes, my favorite movie. It even came out the same month I was born, the same year. And the lead actress and I have the same name.
Oh, fair enough.
It was meant to be.
Yep. Yeah, my
So
mother
how are
gave me
you?
a very romantic name. I needed to, live up to it with the whole fantasy lover and artist and everything.
So how are you today, Jenn? You okay?
Doing good. Got
Nice
gray
one.
skies at the moment, but at least I can see my neighbor's house. So it's not as foggy as it was the other day.
Oh, no more Silent Hill then. Yeah, Jenn, you'll have to forgive me if I'm a bit wide of the mark, but with our correspondence over the years, you seem to be kind of obsessed with this one to agree. Would you say that's accurate?
It's my favorite movie because it is half created by one of my favorite artists,
Fair enough. May I ask who that is?
Brian Froud.
Oh, I have a story for you. Okay. All right.
We'll get to it. So yeah, without further ado, Labyrinth's a 1986 musical fantasy film produced by George Lucas and directed by Jim Henson, from a screenplay by Terry Jones, based on a story conceived by Henson and Dennis Lee. It originally began as a collaboration between Henson and Brian Froud, following their previous collaboration on 1982's The Dark Crystal. Terry Jones of Monty Python wrote the first draft of the film's script early in '84, drawing on Froud's sketches for inspiration. The film stars Jennifer Connelly as teenager Sarah and David Bowie as Jareth, and follows Sarah's journey through a maze to save her baby brother from the Goblin King. Shooting took place from April to September '85 on location in Upper Nyack, Piedmont, and Haverstraw, New York, and at Elstree Studios and West Wickham Park in the UK. The film's fantastical creatures were designed by Froud and created by Jim Henson's Creature Shop. It had a budget of $25 million. However, it underperformed at the US box office, grossing just $12.9 million during its theatrical run. It was, though, a success in both the United Kingdom and overseas, grossing over $34 million worldwide. It was met with a mixed critical response upon its release. Because of this, it was the last feature film that Henson directed. Although over the years it has been reevaluated by many critics. It was a success on home video and TV broadcasts, and Labyrinth has obviously gained a large cult following. And like all films we look here at on Cult Classics, Labyrinth is available in both physical format and on streaming services, dependent on your location. Now, I fell in love with this one on my first viewing. I didn't see it at the cinema, I'm not that old, but I do remember my parents hiring it on Betamax, no less, so okay, maybe I am that old, as soon as it was available, and I lapped it up. In fact, I remember scoring a poster from that video store, and it was on my wall forever. The tagline, where everything seems possible but nothing is what it seems, burned itself into my memory. I pleaded with my parents for the soundtrack that Christmas, and it was my first Bowie record, and I've owned it on pretty much every format from Betamax onwards, so needless to say, it made a good impression. How about you, Vean? What was your first experiences on this one?
For those of you who are too young to remember it, we had things called VCRs, and I had a copy floating around my house that had Labyrinth recorded on TV back to back with The Neverending Story. I wore that tape out. I watched that tape just as much as I could, to the point it literally wouldn't play anymore. And the name had worn off from the handling of the cassette. So, yeah, safe to say it was pretty impactful on me as a kid, because, when you love something that much, and particularly when you're a child, you kind of internalize media in a way that you don't when you're older, and it kind of becomes part of your identity, so to speak. I feel like I almost related more to Jareth than Sarah, which is kind of weird, but Sarah too, in that I think it appealed to me in that outsider kind of way, somebody who doesn't kind of fit in with the family. And I think even being very small, that resonated. So those are my early memories of it.
Cool. Sandy?
My first experience with this was actually the novelization that I picked up at a book fair when I was around 10. I didn't even realize it was a movie until I got to that little section where it had pictures. And that's when I realized, oh, this is live action. Like, this is a movie. But I hadn't heard of it at all. And then I think the next year in school, they showed it during class. I guess it was like one of those throwaway classes, maybe end of the year or something. So my first experience seeing it was on a 20-inch television, on a cart in the classroom. So, but I got to watch it with like all my peers, and I just remember becoming even more. I mean, I was obsessed with the novelization and the pictures. I wore those pictures out, and Sarah was just so beautiful. Especially, it had that ballroom scene in it, and I remember just staring at that picture and wishing, I was her. It was just so cool. And then seeing that movie in school, and then finally I did get my own copy, and I don't have it any longer, but I have also owned it in various forms. I just don't have it presently. But yeah, I just have always just really taken to this movie.
Cool. Jenn?
Well, I also grew up with the VCR and the recorded movies, and Labyrinth was one we did not have. So I didn't actually get to watch it until high school, or junior high school about that time. My sister's friend brought it over and we started watching it. At that point, I had already kind of gotten introduced to the artist Brian Froud, like, this looks familiar. And I learned that he was part of it, and that his son had played the baby, his wife was one of the puppeteers, and how involved they were, and it just kind of grew from there. As an artist, I kind of cling to certain artists. I love their style, and as a fantasy geek, it just fuels my love of folklore and fantasy, and that's where we are.
Go on then, Vean. Let's hear this story.
Oh, about Brian Froud? Well,
Yeah.
I also love his work, and I mostly became familiar with it because of Lab stuff, but became familiar with it outside of that as I, studied him and looked him up and read up and got his books. And so in 2006, I went to Comic-Con in San Diego, the big one, which was a mistake. It was I got there and it was so crowded I couldn't handle it and left. But for the half an hour I was there, I was walking around the vendor's room and I saw this table with this really interesting artwork that it was just being ignored, this table with this vendor. And I kind of glanced over and it was Brian Froud. I was like, holy shit. And I walked over and I'm like, you're Brian Froud. And he's tiny. He's like my height, which shocked me because I'm little. I'm just 5'2". And he was so nice. And I was just looking through his art and he had these prints that were all yellowed around the edges. A painting he did as concept art for Labyrinth called Toby and the Goblins. And they were so old, they were from the original run of the movie. Literally,
Wow.
He was only asking $30 for one. And being a poor 20-something, I had spent all my money just to get there. And I was like, oh, that's so lovely. I can't, but it was so great talking to you. And he was a super nice guy. And I walked away and I met up with my friend and I told her, and she goes, go back and buy it right now or you're going to be really mad. And I did. And he signed it for me. And she was exactly right because it is one of my most prized possessions. I had it professionally framed for like $400 for a $30.
Wow.
And I'm glad my friend made me go back and get it because it's so cool. And when I was talking to him about this painting, which if you've never seen it, it's a baby sitting in the middle of the frame and he's just surrounded by goblins of all shapes and sizes, some of which you end up seeing in the film. And it was before his son had been born. And what's interesting is how much the baby that he painted looks like his actual son that was born later.
I think he said it was like 6 months before conception even.
Yeah. So just a really beautiful painting and a really interesting story from him about the conception of the painting and then subsequently his child.
Wow, that's fantastic. As for the movie, I mean, do you all find that it's something that you go back to visit frequently?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have your impressions changed since your initial viewing, or do you still have that kind of sense of, wonderment at this thing?
I do still have that, but I will say my favorite scenes have changed. And but as far as the music, like it is still so good. The music even. So not too much has changed.
Cool.
There's just something still so steadily magical about it. I mean, the whole process of how they made it, it feels real because of the practical effects used for it. It feels like something you really could step into, and it still kind of takes you away with it.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll get on to the writing of the things, talking about the creative aspect behind it. And as we said, it's from Terry Jones, one of the original Monty Pythoners, who's sadly no longer with us. Do you have any kind of information? I know you've looked into the behind the scenes stuff with regards to this, Jen. Do you have any behind the scenes information with the writing?
Other than he would just look at Brian Froud's art and be able to just go with it. I remember there was something I was watching or listening to, and they were talking about how they were actually just pulling away from the premiere of Dark Crystal, and they immediately started talking about, well, what can we do next? And it went from making Jareth the villain to, oh, what if we used a rock star? And immediately it's like they started going through a list like, no, David Bowie would be perfect. It's cool to see and listening to how it just kind of came together between the two of them. Brian Froud and Jim Henson were a fantastic team. I mean, you get Dark Crystal and Labyrinth out of that. And it's so cool to see how they just organically worked together to pull together these fantastical worlds.
In looking at the different people that they were looking at to play Jareth, it's funny because you say, only David Bowie could be Jareth, and it's true. But all the different people they were looking at, I all think they could have done a wonderful Jareth. It just would have been a totally different movie with a totally different tone. And I'm just so glad they did pick Bowie.
Absolutely. Especially since Bowie wrote all the music. I mean, I don't think he did the soundtrack or the background music. I think he just did his songs. But if it had been somebody else, we'd have had completely different music.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I read that Michael Jackson was in consideration at one point.
And Mick Jagger, he was another one considered. It would have been funny too. But yeah, totally different movie. Prince also, and Sting was also looked at.
And there's just this dreamlike quality to David Bowie. There's always been this kind of otherworldliness about him, etherealness. And he just kind of fits into that Fey Goblin world very well.
They all would have looked great in tights, though.
Of course.
Sandy's judging it by a different comparison.
Now.
Oh my gosh.
Well, thematically, I think that's one of the interesting things about this movie is that you have a bunch of men writing about a woman who, well, she's not a woman yet. She's still a girl, and she is beginning to experience womanhood. It's just the very tip of the iceberg for her. And she's not only experiencing these new feelings for herself, but she's also experiencing older male attention and how it is scary. And
you're out of your depths, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the movie explores that in a really profound way, coming from a male perspective, because there weren't really any women involved in the creative process for the most part.
Yeah, Wendy, I think, was probably the most involved, and she was mostly involved probably in keeping Toby okay.
Yeah. So it's just interesting that these men could actually have this perspective, have it come across so strongly.
Do you think that's one of the reasons why this kind of holds up, where a lot of its, compatriots kind of fall by the wayside? The fact that it's a fantasy film. Yes, it's got that, that element of the otherworldly about it. It's obviously produced with great care, but the fact that it's got this kind of almost coming of age layer to it, do you think that's what kind of allows it to
absolutely
endear?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's kind of like got this Wizard of Oz, Alice in Wonderland theme to it. Because you've got, your cowardly lion, your no heart Tin Man and everything. Because, like, Hoggle's trying to pretend that he has no heart. And Ludo's looking scared and looking around. And you got Sir Didymus, silly little guy. And, she's got her trio with her. But then she's also this girl brought from another world, brought into completely strange place that doesn't make any sense. So you've got both kind of those very popular storylines. It's become a very popular theme of taking the normal girl and throwing her into wonder.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going off on a tangent here, but it's also got that element of, when you get to the end, I don't know what, and I don't know how much it's touched upon in the novelization, but it's kind of everything's foreshadowed before the movie happens, with obviously the things in Sarah's room and things like that. And it, to an extent, it reminds me of, I don't know if you've seen the Gilliam movie Time Bandits, which has a similar kind of setup. And I'm just wondering, do you subscribe to the theory that it is all kind of a dream when it gets to the end, or do you think it canonically it happens within the framework of the movie?
To me, it really happened, especially because of how it ended. And I do think in the novel it ended a little bit more vaguely, if I recall. But to me, but that's what's great about it, is I know everybody's going to have a different opinion.
It's kind of the idea of you make your own reality. So is she psychically connected to this other world, and that's why she was able to be pulled into it, and that's why it surrounds her? Or did she create it herself in her own head, and it's all in her head? It's kind of you just have to ask, which reality do you want to go with?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I mean, there is an element of it growing within the framework. There is a story arc, no matter which way you look at it. And there's that section where it quite literally is putting away childhood things, when she's in the junkyard and things like that. And she realizes that it's all junk. And I'm just wondering how much that touched you on a personal level. When you reached that age, did you also find that kind of thing?
It's funny, that's the scene I remember the most, and that always the movie might have gone forgotten 5 years here, 5 years there in my life, but that's the scene that would always remind me to go back and watch it because of something I went through in my own personal life, and not purposely, but that scene would just pop into my head as, getting sloughing off burdens. And so that actually I'm surprised you mentioned it. I thought it was a kind of a forgotten scene, but that was such a poignant scene for me.
Yeah,
So-
her putting the pictures and everything into her desk and the music box. It's not necessarily just like putting away childish things, but it's realizing what's really important in your life. For her, she was realizing she needs to take care of herself, yes, but there are other people in her life that are important. Her brother is important. And maybe she's been a little too self-centered and too lost in her own little fantasy world to realize the reality around her. I've always seen Sarah as a very spoiled child.
Yeah, definitely. I was just going to say, Sandy, it's kind of like the denouement to the film itself, that you kind of move on, but every now and again, for no reason at all, you find that you need this, if you know what I mean. So you come back to it.
I can leave now because you just said my favorite
Right.
line too. But yeah, it hits hard, and I guess that's another reason it has such staying power. And I've lived 40 years with this movie, and it still hits just as hard, and it's still just as beautiful and just as thought-provoking. It's just really so good.
Speaking of those scenes, there's a reason this movie resonates with women. I find anecdotally talking to people and watching, reviews online and the way men talk about it versus the way women talk about it, and who really enjoys it and who's like, it's a good fantasy movie, but who it really resonates with tends to be women. One of the scenes that people repeatedly say was the scariest scene to them is the scene in the junkyard with the woman. And I think that here we have the opposite end of the spectrum, where you have Sarah, who is new and young and blooming, and then the terror that women, primarily women, face in terms of aging and getting old and hunched and returning to child things. And the way that's presented really scared people. And I think it goes to speak to, again, the way women experience life through the lens of sexuality and being an object of sexuality, both from others and internally.
That's an interesting point, because I mean, when I look at it just as a kind of fantasy. But asking you here, when you watch it, especially when you watched it at that age, did you experience that? Did the whole Jareth giving Sarah attention, did it add that extra layer of danger kind of thing? Because that's what you have to relate to in real life.
Yeah, I would say yes. Now I'm an anomaly because I've always liked older men, and I think this may have hurt. And so I always skewed older, but it's sort of fantastical and glamorized in the movies, and this is not an exception. It's kind of a glamorized relationship. The danger's present, but you never, I think, feel that Sarah's really in any real threat of harm. Like, it's like, okay, yeah, but he loves her. He's not really gonna, hurt her or anything. So you're not prepared, I think, as a young woman. Like, when I was 19, I decided it was a good idea to date my 40-something college professor. And I wish there had been an adult in my life who said, hey, this is a bad idea, and he's a fucking predator. But so when you get into real world examples, it's not as wholesome. And there's a lot more complexity to real life dynamics when you're talking about the age gap and the power gap and power imbalances. And
I mean, I did read a theory that Jareth is, for the most part, compared to Sarah, completely powerless. I don't know what you guys thought about this. And in essence, he's just a goblin that's slightly higher on the food chain than the goblins that surround him with. And it's his attraction to Sarah that kind of gives him that power. But at the end of it, she realizes that she's the one in control, as it were, and he's just simping after her. When he says, love me, let me be your slave, kind of thing, he's really kind of wearing his heart on his sleeve, as it were. And it's at that point that she realized that get lost kind of thing. So when you see them all dancing at the end, he's still around, because obviously you see the owl outside the window kind of thing, but he's kind of been put back in his place. I just wondered what you thought of that.
Well, you have to remember, when he says love me and all of that, he's also saying obey me and let me rule you.
Yeah.
So it's not really let me be your slave and everything. It's more of let me be your slave in my way.
But I think he's been more of a paper tiger at that point. I think he's kind of like, I hate to say it, he's a bit of a Donald Trump. He's all talk.
Well, that's him trying to reassert his power, right? Because he knows she's realizing that she is strong, and he doesn't want that. He wants to have power over somebody.
And let me use one of my new favorite phrases that I've gotten from Sarah J. Maas from Crescent City. He just shows that he's an alpha hole. He is an alpha that must have his control in the end, no matter how much one brings him to his knees.
Yeah.
And I saw this a bit differently. I do agree that, Sarah wasn't in any real danger. And the way he smirks and laughs and toys with her through the whole thing, I really thought that this was him being a part of her growing up. I thought he knew how it was going to end, and that afterwards he was hanging around because, I don't know, like he was happy to be a part of this transition of her, almost like he knew that this experience would change her, and he was a part of that, and not an evil part of that, but a necessary part of that. And it's funny, I just did not think of him as being he was only manipulative in a way to get her to complete her journey. I didn't ever really think he was evil or bad or really intending on carrying through with this plan. I really thought he just was this stepping stone on her journey.
Yeah, I like that. You can have different interpretations with regards to it. As I say, it seems to, as Vean said, it resonates more with women, I guess. I mean, I love it, but it's purely a facile interpretation of it. In that I when I saw it as a kid, I just thought it was just this fantastic adventure story, and creativity wise, I think there are more ideas in this movie than you get in a lot of films in general. It's just brimming with ideas, and I think that's why I love it so much. Even tropes that have been used time and time again, like fairies, they give them that little twist to kind of throw the viewer off guard. It works to the story's benefit tremendously.
I mean, that's what makes the richness of this movie, is that even characters you only see for a minute, for even characters you never interact with them, just in the background, you can tell they all have a backstory. They all have their own story to tell, even though we're not seeing it this time, because Froud and Henson have made it such a rich world and given that artistry and given that attention that it makes it real and gives it that depth.
Yes. And it's inspired so many books. I can't even tell you how many graphic novels have come from this. The Labyrinth has inspired an entire community of fantasy lovers because of this insanely unending depth of a world. It can't be contained in any specific tiny little bubble. Like you look at some other fantasy movies, they're just their own little thing. It's like even Dark Crystal is amazing. You can tell that it still has all of those stories to go with it. The Labyrinth has a connection with our world, so we can be a part of it, and it still pulls us in because of that.
we've talked about the writing and the depth to the writing, but let's just go straight to the production design, the costuming, the sets, the effects. I mean, do you have anything with regards to behind the scenes for that kind of thing?
Did you know that they had to use at least 2 actors just to do Ludo because he was so heavy? The actor would get exhausted. Originally, he started out at 100 pounds, and Henson's like, no, that's not manageable. We can't do that. You have to take it down. All this latex that they used for it, you've got the hands that grab her in the end, and these are people that are putting their arms through walls and having to maneuver without being able to see, doing their hands backwards to make these faces. They had to do so much practice work just to get that part. The scene with dance magic, they started out with only 20 goblins, and then they realized, oh, this isn't going to work. This isn't enough. And they had to start hiring another 20 or more puppeteers. The way that this grew, I think it went beyond what they had initially thought it would be, because it was just, like we said, it's so vast that there were so many different things that they could do with it. Froud tried to keep his sketches from being very finished because he wanted the artists to be able to put some interpretation into it and let it grow organically as the creative process went.
And every single one of them is unique. You don't see
Yes.
repeat goblins. It's amazing.
Yes. And the ball scene, when they were doing the masks, they tried to do the masks as kind of a parody to each of the different goblins. So each of those masks matches up with a goblin that is in the movie. It's kind of like they took the goblins and then turned them into these beautiful human versions for the ball scene. So it's like a illusion transformation. And it was Jennifer Connelly's first time ever doing ballroom dancing. So she got to learn how to do ballroom dancing while tripping over David Bowie's feet. Every single effect, every creature in this is practical. I think the only CG they really used was with the Chili Down video part of it song, with the fire-looking goblins, where
And
they
you
took
can
their
see
heads
that
off.
a little bit with their outline, but that's really the only place you see it. Yeah.
So they had the actors wearing black velvet, because that is the blackest fabric that you can get, doing all the dance parts and everything. And then, the usual green, almost like the green screen, except black screen, pieced it together. And it still is very well done, especially for the 80s.
Did I read that owl was one of the first CGI attempts?
Yes. Oh my gosh, that owl. It's so clunky, kind of just very jagged movement. But that's where CG was at that time.
Yeah, and as kids, and back then, we didn't see it, of course. It looked so real and perfect back then.
It was just so cool to see something like that. I think about it now, I'm like, they would have been almost better just doing traditional animation for that. But then it would have been too cartoony and not quite fit in.
And talked about the dancing a little, the ballroom scene and the fireys. Obligatory Star Trek reference. Of course, we all know who did the choreography, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Gates McFadden.
Well, it has another connection as well. One of the actors that plays two of the Fireys is Danny John Jules, who plays Cat in Red Dwarf.
And the guy who does the old man with the hat, Goblin, that is Star Wars connection. That's Yoda. Frank Oz.
Oh, Frank Oz
does his voice.
I do know that Michael Hordin's in there as well, who for British listeners, he did the narration for the Paddington TV series way back in the 70s and 80s.
Oh wow.
So I will say, as a general rule, that there are certain bits in this movie that now look. I mean, you mentioned the CGI owl, but there's the odd scene where the special effects, for example,
throwing the baby up in the air, and you can tell it's a Not a real
Oh.
baby.
Yeah, or when he's sending the crystal balls out and they're flying, and they
Oh my
look a little
gosh, yeah.
hokey now, but to me, it still holds up incredibly well. And it brought to mind that where you, Jen, mentioned how many people it took to operate Ludo. The section where she first gets Ludo down from being held prisoner, and he stands up next to her, it still looks impressive. You still think,
Really.
Yeah.
you can look at it through the lens of it's, as you said, it's 40 years old now. But for
Well,
the most part, it still looks really fresh to me. Any of you, do you have a kind of favorite character or effect in this that kind of brings you joy when you see it?
Didymus.
Yes. Yeah, the same here.
On his steed, on his loyal steed.
Yes,
They
absolutely.
used to make me laugh so hard when they go across the rocks and that flatulence noise with every step.
Yes.
And how Ludo's doing
And
it
his,
real
like-
slow, and then there's this like boop 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 boop, like real fast.
They even have like the clicking of like horseshoes as he's going across. And like, oh my gosh.
I love the fact that when it's a long shot, it's the actual dog, and then when it gets close up, it's got the puppet Ambrosius, so you can see him like shaking in fear and things like that. I love that. Yeah. What about you, Vean? Do you have a favorite kind of character effect in this?
Well, if we're talking about effects, the helping hands are my favorite. I
Yeah.
love it. I probably quote it more than is healthy. But if we're talking character design, I agree that it's Didymus. He's so charming, and the visual, well, for all three of the mains, Hoggle and Ludo and Didymus, the character design so perfectly encapsulates the character personality.
Yes.
And I think that's true of all three. But that being said, it's just Didymus is such a charming character with such a charming personality. How could his design not reflect that?
I just love it. I just love the fact that there is so much creativity in this, and visually, I think it's stunning. So I mean, I'll use this opportunity to get onto the direction now, which according to
we've been trying. I wanted to go back to the set design, just like some of the how each world that Sarah's falls into, how the set design just gives it a completely different feel, and even something so subtle as to the walls of the labyrinth itself having that glitter on it. Whoever's idea that was, it's just it does add to the magic of the set design. I really love that small detail so much.
and even
80s glitter explosions.
and even little visual touches like having the rocks in the formation of Bowie's face.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah.
But yeah, Brian Henson said his dad was going through a particularly bad time around about Labyrinth. So when it didn't get, good critical reception, that's when he decided not to direct any more movies, which I think is a real shame, because I think this one is just fantastic. And there's some beautiful, like little visuals in the direction here. I'm thinking specifically the one that stands out for me is in the tunnels where Jareth throws the crystal ball and it becomes the
cleaner.
The cleaner.
Oh, yeah.
So
I did read though that he did, live to see its cult following and appreciation, and that he was comforted by that.
Good.
Oh, that's good.
He said in one of the behind the scenes things that he's like, I thought directing a baby was going to be hard, but then I had to direct chickens. They have one chicken that was like, no, I'm gonna perch up here on top of the set. I am not coming back down. I know that they had to do a lot of stuff with actual people inside the suits. So you've got things being plotted out for Hoggle for his movements and everything. So they had to work together on syncing that up, because they had the actor inside the suit, and then they had someone doing the voice. Brian Henson did the voice, and someone running the controls. Directing all of that, I can't imagine trying to be able to put the story together and have everything synced up, because this is, that's the thing with animatronics people want to avoid, is that you have to get all of the mechanisms working and syncing up.
And I read Ludo had a camera in his horn
so that he could see.
And that Hoggle grunted a lot so that his mouth could be open so that the woman inside was able to see what was going on.
With regards to the direction, with Henson's direction, I mean, do you guys have any standouts? I mean, what do you think to the direction on this one?
I think a lot of it, obviously, as far as the creatures, was a lot of voice direction. What the puppet was capable of doing. But and then of course your live action people. I wonder if Bowie took much direction. That just feels very Bowie, everything, that he's in. But as far as the voice direction and conveying emotion, or like Hoggle conveying shame or frustration at Jareth never getting his name right, I think that was all just really spectacular. It just even more brought those puppets to real life for us.
Everything that I've seen and read, it sounded like it really was a team, that they all very much built this thing together. Bowie is seen as very gracious and listened to direction well, worked well together, worked well with the team on being very creative with it. He was given full reign to do whatever he wanted with the music. The only real direction he gave the people that were doing the goblins was be goblins. So they kind of just were allowed to just kind of go wild. And he knew that he had to have a big scene at the end. So he's like, well, what's the best, big scene you can put at the end? Well, a battle. Well, let's not, I don't really want to have like a big bloody battle or anything like that. So we're going to have a silly battle. And that's when you get like even the cannonballs are goblins. They're like, did I hit something? Yes? No?
Yeah.
And I'm tired. I'm sick of this. I'm going to bed. And he goes into his home and things like that. I would love to be able to have been a fly on the wall with all of this, because it is so fun and silly. This is one of those kind of movies that makes me want to go into production design. He gave so much free reign to a lot of his actors and his artists to really bring this to life. And it's because of all of that individuality and all of that creativity of the entire team, I feel like this really works, that we feel like it is live.
There's a sense of chaos to some of the scenes, and I think it works really well in its favor. As you say, the battle, and to an extent, the throne room, where the goblins are just being goblins kind of thing.
And the fire gang, which really horrified me as a kid. I thought that concept was so scary.
And yet, that's actually one of my favorite songs.
It is a great song.
What about you, Vean? Any thoughts on the direction?
Yeah, I think the benefit of having a director like Jim Henson is Jim Henson got into TV initially because he was interested in it as a medium, and he liked doing puppetry, but not necessarily, I'm going to go and make TV for kids. I'm going to go and make puppets for kids. He actually didn't. He started doing stuff that was geared towards adults. And so even the commercials he was making were, they were funny and they appealed to children, but they weren't made for children. And so you see that again with the Muppet Show and the type of humor and the type of stories that he's telling and the way he's telling it. So you have somebody who's kind of a visionary, who's soft-spoken, but who is interested in the craft, who is interested in the medium. And if it happens to tell a story to children, then it does. So I think the payoff is you have somebody who's telling a story that is geared towards children, but who's not expressly trying to make children's media. And I think that gives children a lot more leverage, sort of. Like you're able to appreciate it more because it's not pandering. It's not
patronizing them, so to speak. It's giving them some intelligence.
It's not talking down to them.
Yeah, all of that.
I love that our main character is also very intelligent. She takes smart tactics in solving the riddle and drawing the arrows with her lipstick so she can keep track of her movements in the labyrinth for all the good it did. But I think I appreciate that too, that this person that we're identifying with is very smart.
for the sake of a plot, they never make her appear anything less than intelligent, and I do like that. So it kind of brings us into the performance now. And although there are a lot of very talented voice actors, there are really kind of only two main players in this, which is Jennifer Connelly and David Bowie. And I'm just, what are your thoughts with regards to the performances?
I'm shocked at her age.
Yeah.
Not only because she looks older, but because she plays all those emotions. She's able to access them so well, even from being smug whenever she figures out something in the labyrinth or thinks she has and says it's a piece of cake, and fright, happiness, frustration at having to babysit her brother again, and that argument she has with the parents, her own exasperation, just is all played so well. I'm just so completely shocked to find out she was that age. And of course, Bowie just doing what he does best, and his movements, his interaction with the puppets was just so genuine.
I will say, the more I watch it, the more impressed I am with Jennifer Connelly's performance. I mean, Bowie's just being Bowie, basically. Yeah. But Connelly does, for her age, she does a masterclass. But yeah, any particular lines that are delivered in this that you just think captures their performance just perfectly?
Well, it's like when she reaches that point of Hoggle finally says it's not fair, and she goes, "That's right, it isn't, but that's the way it is."
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see her grow in that moment, and I do like that. For Bowie, I've got to say, and it's just a throwaway thing, but it's the way it's delivered, because they keep getting Hoggle's name wrong. It's when they're down in the tunnels, and Bowie goes Higgle, and he says Hoggle, and Bowie goes yes. And I think the way that he just delivers that, it's so flippant, but it's so Bowie, and it just makes me love his performance all the more in this.
I have a similar moment with Bowie, because it's a throwaway line. It's not anything important, but it's when he's first introducing Sarah to the labyrinth, and she goes, "Well, but I didn't mean it," and he goes, "Oh, you didn't?" Like, it's the delivery of that line. It's just sarcastic and snarky and so dismissive of her. And I love the way he delivers that line. I will say I do disagree slightly regarding Jennifer Connelly's performance. I do think she's an amazing actress. I think she's grown into an amazing actress, but I do think there are moments where I'm watching this that she's phenomenal, but I do think there are quite a number of moments where I'm like, this is very child actory. This was sort of her, even though she was 14, this was like her master's program, basically.
And I think I see that mostly in the beginning, where she's like, "Oh no, we're late again," and it was just very flat. I think that's the only part I noticed it.
Yeah, I do remember I rewatched it last night, of course, and those just the little spots here and there, and it's like, she didn't know what to do with this one, and so on and so forth. And it being her first like big acting thing, I think she's only done like modeling and commercials before that. It's pretty cool.
No, and I was going to say, and all of that being said about where I'm like, "Ooh, that's not a great delivery," for what she was thrown into, she did an amazing job.
Yeah, we'll get onto the music. And do any of you have a favorite song of Bowie's in this, or a favorite song in general?
I don't remember what the song's called, but the one that's in the Escher room. That's actually my favorite scene, the Escher room, the stairs.
It's called Within You.
It's just an amazing scene, and I don't know how they were able to film that set, how they put each angle together. That's one that always blows me away.
I'm going to say, song-wise, it's got to be Magic Dance. I did say earlier that I begged my parents for the soundtrack for Christmas. They did get me, and this is, back in the days when vinyl was the only medium. So I got it, and I said, should I play a bit just to make sure it's not scratched? And I remember my mom saying, yeah. So I played it, and I recorded the thing onto cassette. So even before Christmas, I just could not stop listening to Magic Dance.
It would have to be between Magic Dance and Chili Down, and that's just because it's really both peppy songs that get you moving and are actually like mood lifting with their music alone.
Yeah.
The songs are so diverse and they appeal to different moods, every single one of them. So you have wistful and you have romantic, and you have upbeat, and you have, so I think the whole soundtrack is just magic. I couldn't possibly choose.
Nice one. I do have to give a shout out to Trevor Jones, who did the incidental music on this one, because I think if you listen to the soundtrack, some of the tracks are just beautiful. Obviously, he's overshadowed by Bowie when it comes to the music in this, but I think as incidental music goes, I think Trevor Jones did a fantastic job. And I'm thinking specifically of the track where she first enters the labyrinth and she's going down that endless corridor.
I don't think he's overshadowed. I really don't. I think you cannot separate the incidental music from this. It wouldn't. The movie would not work. And
Yeah.
I don't think Bowie overshadows him. I really don't.
Oh, fair point. Okay, so when it comes to this movie, skipping ahead now, what's your favorite aspect? What is it about it precisely that keeps you coming back to this one?
I think it's kind of the never-ending amount of ideas that come from it, that depth, that world depth of so many different things going on that you can just tell that there's more to the story, and wanting to try and just pick out more things from it. It just always inspires me, and it's my feel-good movie. If I'm having a bad day, I watch it. It makes me feel better and happier, and just it's that kind of gateway into the imagination.
That's kind of my point, is that I cannot separate out one element, because everybody in the production worked so seamlessly together that I can't pick out one thing and go, okay, it's this. No, it's this, because it's the story, it's the directing, it's the way it was written, it is the way the fabrication of the creatures and the dynamism of them, and the sets design and the costume and the music. So I don't think there is one element of it that particularly brings me in so much as the culmination of all these different art processes merging and becoming something really beautiful.
Oh, just that feeling of possessiveness too when I was growing up, just feeling like nobody got the movie like I did, and how it was speaking directly to me. I think just made it so special to me when I was younger, even though, I think that's just part of growing up and having that very self-centered view of the world. And just that rooted it in me, I think. And it's just very captivating in all aspects, and somehow just never ages or never goes away.
Yeah, as is always the case, we summoned you rocks out there on our socials to see what you thought of this one. Now, most of the time we go over to Vean to hear what you had to say, but luckily for us this time, she's in the studio with us. So, Vean, what are the listeners' opinions on this one?
So we got a bit of feedback here. So from the NERD Facebook group Nerd, David Howland, one of our all-star contributors, said Bowie was amazing. The puppets fit in seamlessly. The music, well, it's Bowie for a start, but unique to the film. Also, the film is definitely timeless. He went on to add amazing dance, magic dance. Here's Carnivius. I never liked it. The puppetry, yes. The creepy vibes of a middle-aged man played by a rock star alleged to be with underage groupies, with his crotch bulge, abducting a baby to lure the underage sister to him so he can seduce her. Not so much. Which, fair.
Yeah.
That's not inaccurate. There's some valid criticism here. Let's see what else from the Cult Cinema and TV Facebook group. Sean Andrew Earlum said Labyrinth is a more enjoyable watch, and Al Winter said Labyrinth is loads more fun, but both are great. I think they're referring to Dark Crystal. And then from NERD, Gareth Wood, the golden era of kids cinema and one of my all-time favorite films. The golden era of kids cinema and one of my all-time favorite films. Really hope we get the prequel sequel they talked about, as long as it was done right. The Dark Crystal Netflix series was so good, and such a shame it didn't get renewed. And then Brian McAllister said the Dark Crystal doesn't hold up too well, but Labyrinth has improved with age, which I think that's a really interesting take. From Lynn McKinnon's personal Facebook, she says, the Dark Crystal is just as good as Labyrinth in its story design, horror aspects, and character development. So no, I wouldn't choose between them, and it wouldn't be fair. David Bowie had read the script and wanted to be part of the film and the music. Long may the genius behind the infamous Ziggy Stardust live on in all his work here, besides various genres he has worked on and performed in. The world is pure Jim Henson, so as a fan, happy as a pig in muck, and the puppetry is first class, as is the direction. If anyone thinks this film is dated in any way, to a point perhaps visually, but its overall message about good over evil and standing up for yourself when you're afraid is just as relevant now as then. This gem of a movie is 5 stars all the way, and one word to describe it: timeless.
Nice one. Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Vean. And again, thank you to you out there for sharing your thoughts with us. And if you missed our rallying cry, it's not too late. You can always let us know your opinions on today's movie, either on said socials or by dropping a comment below. So with you out there taken care of, it's down to us here to give our final thoughts and silver screen score out of 5. So yeah, considering she's already in front of the mic, we'll stick with Vean. V, what's your ultimate opinion on Labyrinth?
I think it's a work of art. I really do think it's a masterpiece. Comparatively to Jim Henson's other work, I know a lot of people say that Dark Crystal is his magnum opus, and of course he's best known for the Muppets and the Muppet films, but I think the dedication that he gave to this film really, really speaks highly to him as a craftsman, not just in direction, but in every element, because he had a hand in the puppetry, he had a hand in the design, he had a hand in the story, he had a hand in the casting, and so I really think this is his absolute best work. And in terms of philosophy and art, I think there's so much of that represented in this film that you don't see in his other work. And so for me, just an absolute masterpiece. And Terry Jones' script, I mean, eminently quotable. And somebody who does not get enough credit for making this movie what it is. I have heard many criticisms of the script, and I think the script is brilliant. I think it's funny. I think it's subtle. I think it's a little bit subversive. And yeah, this is going to be a 5-star film for me, for sure.
Nice one. Sandy?
I just really, as mentioned, have really loved this movie for a very long time. It's just so very magical and musical. The story is simple, but it is definitely all about the journey and these friends that she's made, bringing her on this journey, helping her through. Just really love the movies, the visuals, the music, of course, and the final message that, though she's realized it's time to grow up and is starting to take on these responsibilities, that it's really okay to, step back into this fantasy. When she does say, I don't know why, but every now and again in my life, prophetically saying, for no reason at all, I'm going to need you. And that they would be there for her, that this fantasy world is just always going to be there. I just loved all of that, and how much it resonated with me personally as a kid, and continues to resonate in different ways as I've watched this again and again and again in my life. And then again, I can find no fault with this movie. I'm also going to give it 5 stars.
Wow. Jenn?
As I've said, this is one of my favorite movies. This is my feel-good movie, my movie I turn to when the entire world is falling apart. It has so many of these elements of just, it's not a super heavy movie. You can watch it and be able to be lighthearted with it, but you can also feel that depth of story, of things that Sarah's going through, of learning well, she's not a kid anymore in every way, and that there are things that are more important out there than herself. Just the way this movie was made and collaborated. I mean, you've got a baby in there that would not exist if Dark Crystal had never been made, because that's where Brian Froud met Wendy, was making that movie. This is one of those kind of things that things just kind of fell into place. And the creativity and the amount of work that went into this, the teams that built it, it was a beautiful melody, bringing it all together. And the music, the acting, the story, it brings together a world that you can just kind of dive into every time. You can immerse yourself in it, and you can bring something out of it new every time. I think that this is something that might not age well as far as film quality is concerned, because we're always going to have that 1980s graininess. But as far as an overall film, it's going to forever be a great movie. You're always going to be able to show it to people and have them, they're going to fall in love with this movie. So for me, it'd be a 5 out of 5.
5 out of 5. Wow. Right. Yeah, I'm going to keep it short compared to you guys, but I'm just saying it's a beautifully layered fantasy movie where creativity and artistry just shine through, from the performances to the production design to the soundtrack. Everything fires on all cylinders, and it's a great example of what can happen when everybody works together to produce a movie of such quality. And I'm also giving it 5 out of 5. So, yeah, not hard to average out those.
Has that ever happened?
It has happened, but not with this many people. So, yeah, it gives Labyrinth a final silver screen score of 5 out of 5, which is a perfect score on this one. So, yeah, pretty well liked all across the board. I'm guessing you all are happy with that?
Absolutely. It's a brilliant movie. It's brilliant work.
So yeah, with that, we've reached our final destination, the castle beyond the Goblin City. I'd like to thank you out there for joining us. Hope you've enjoyed it. I'd also like to give a big thank you to each of our guests today, starting with our our resident expert, Jen. You had a good time on it?
Yeah, a lot. It's fun doing this. Always fun talking about something I love.
Brilliant. I mean, it did take us a while to get here, but did the conversation live up to your expectations?
Yes. And I am so grateful to meet 2 more lovers of this movie.
Fantastic. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on there. So while I have you here, is there anything you'd like to draw attention to? Anywhere the listeners can find you? Anything like that?
I am on Instagram, ALINSTARR. And if you're wanting to check out the Labyrinth of Jareth Masquerade Ball, like I said, it's in LA the 21st and 22nd of August. And I will give DK the link to include with this posting.
Brilliant. So, Sandy, once again, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for including me. I was happy to talk about this movie with everybody here, and I do appreciate it. I'm not really on the socials so much, but look forward to seeing, checking everybody else's out.
Okay, so you've not got anywhere that anybody can track you down. You're a bit of a hermit like me, yeah? Yeah. Last but not least, a big thank you to the good lady Vean.
Oh, it was great. And, I came into this because I'm so intimately familiar with this movie, thinking I would not learn anything new.
Oh, nice one. I'm guessing you've enjoyed it today, yeah?
Oh, very much. It's such a phenomenal movie. And I really like hearing other people's takes on it, because it reminds me that my perspective is not the only one. Like when we were talking, Sandy and Jen kept referring to all the creatures of the labyrinth as goblins. And I was like, that's so interesting. They think of them as goblins, whereas I think of them as other types of creatures, other things. And so just seeing these different perspectives and getting new eyes on a piece of media is always really fascinating and fun.
That's good to hear. Well, do you have anywhere the listeners can find you? Do you have anything that's coming up that you want to draw attention to?
I do have something to plug, actually, and since we're talking about fantasy, it's appropriate. I have been invited to do some reading on a Tolkien Day event that's going in March, but I will probably have the videos of what I'm reading. I'm reading some excerpts from the Silmarillion, and some of them are already on my YouTube channel, but I'm going to be doing the story of the creation of the Ents and the Dwarves in 3 parts, and that will be on my YouTube channel, which is Vean Chevalier. That's Vean, and Chevalier, Chev as in Victor, Alier. And I'm mostly active also on Blue Sky Social at Lady Vean.
Cool. I understand that you're going to be around a lot more this year on Silver Screen's Star Trek show as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm going to be doing quite a few episodes, and possibly all of them. It hasn't been decided yet, but there's a possibility there. But you'll definitely be hearing more of me. So if you guys like to hear me yelling about Star Trek, tune in for sure.
Nice one. I look forward to hearing you. So, yeah, thank you all for joining me today. And finally, while I'm here, I'd also like to thank one other person, Nick. Not only has he been a fantastic guest over the months, as you've no doubt heard on our recent Drunken Master recording, but for the last 2+ years of the show, Nick has been the editor of our episodes here on Cult Classics. Not only has he been a reliable and easy to work with collaborator, but he's also a good friend. And after all this time, Nick has decided that it's time to move on, with this episode being his very last. Aww. So, yeah, what a doozy we've given him. Aww. So, on behalf of myself, all the guests we've had here on Cult Classics over the last couple of years, and our audience, I'd like to offer my sincere gratitude for everything he's done. So, yeah, enjoy your parole, buddy, and I'll see you for the 3-liter cocktails soon enough. But, although one of us has reached the end of the path here on Cult Classics, the show, for the time being, must go on. And if you enjoyed this, our first episode of our 80s fantasy flashback, turn around and join us next week on Silver Screen Regular Flavor, as Mike and co will be looking at 80s fantasy spectacular and traumatizer of an entire generation of children, The Never-Ending Story. So yeah, remember Artax. And our season continues on when in just 2 weeks Cult Classics will return, as myself and the Destination Yesterday team will be grabbing our glaive and visiting the world of Krull. So not only will we be taking a deep dive into that, but there'll also be a special announcement regarding the Cult Classics show itself. So please do join us for that one. Until then, look after yourself, take care, and remember, it's only forever, not long at all. Good night.
You have been listening to the Cult Classics Show, part of the Silver Screen Podcast. Created, written, and hosted by DK. Editing by Nick. Produced by Mike Wilson. Feedback section produced by Lady Vean. Opening credits by Ian Sanderson. Music by Timeless Journey. Follow us on social media. Links to all of our social media pages can be found on our link tree. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. This has been a Mad Badger production for the Media Matters Podcast Network. Copyright 2024. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you next time. And remember, no matter where you go, there you are.